So that is full body done. A massive fan of morning workouts at the moment. I feel like I can get the most out of every session. Today's video, guys, is going to be how skinny guys can build muscle. I know this is a common problem amongst many guys. I experienced it myself. As an online coach, I now help guys build muscle too. And hopefully, you know, at the end of this video, once I give some of my top tips, you'll be in a position to build muscle too. Tip number 1 is eating in a calorie surplus. So guys, just use a calculator online, try and work out your maintenance calories and just eat slightly above that over a period of time. I'm going to get my post-workout in now. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm eating. I know what you're thinking, what on earth are you doing with a rice cake? But I promise you, a rice cake dipped into this kind of whey protein paste. If you're lazy like myself and can't be bothered to make it into a shake, just make it into a paste. Rice cake into the paste, absolutely incredible. Also, when it comes to nutrition, you know, don't feel that you have to eat clean every single day. You can have a kind of balanced diet. You can include foods in moderation. For myself, every single day, pretty much have fruit and veg. But also alongside that, as you've probably seen in previous videos, you know, I love a squares bar, I love a cereal bar. You know, having these foods in your intake on a daily basis, you know, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Tip number 2 is your training split. So first of all, guys, work out how many times realistically you can train during the week, and then form your training split. What I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to show you all the different training splits you could potentially do on a weekly basis. Just work out how many days you can train and then form your training split. Let's say you can train 5 times in the week, and we're going to take the training split of a pull, push, legs, upper, lower. Okay, so we've got to ensure that we're hitting every single muscle group 2 times throughout the week. We've got to get that volume in. And when it comes to the session, you've got to make sure you're hitting the compounds, your bench press, your shoulder press, barbell bent over rows, your squats, your deadlifts, those bigger movements. Alongside those, with your isolation work, unilateral work, you know, fill in the whole session. Just my first 2 tips alone is going to get you so far in your physique. Eating a calorie surplus and also figuring out the correct training split for you in your training. You know, do those over a period of time and you're going to completely change your physique. A really key point to consider is consistency. So make sure that you keep showing up on a regular basis. If you're putting loads of work in for a week or 2 and having 2 weeks off, for sure you're not going to grow any muscle. And of course, you know, this doesn't just apply to build a muscle, it applies to every single thing in your life. Just keep showing up, keep being consistent on a regular basis. So let's just talk a little bit more about consistency. So as I said a second ago, you know, you've got to keep showing up on a weekly basis, and you've also got to look at the overall goal. So of course you can make incredible progress in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it may be. But if you're serious about changing physique, you know, you've got to put in so much work, 6 months, a year, 2 years plus. During this time as well, you know, you are going to increase your education and your knowledge. So how you start training when you first enter the gym and start developing your physique, you know, everything you're doing, your training split, your training style, everything like that, you know, over time it's going to develop, it's going to get better. You know, that is very, very important, because a lot of the time you'll look at someone's physique and think, oh, that's incredible, I want to look like them. But in some ways you've got to look at it in terms of that's their overall journey. They've made mistakes along the way. They've changed things to ensure that they keep improving and keep developing. Straight on to tip number 4, and that is progressive overload. So you'll hear this term a lot. Progressive overload basically means to progressively overload the load, which is the weight, or sets and reps to enable your muscle to grow. If you're lifting the same weight week in, week out, or the same rep range week in, week out, you know, you're not going to be developing your physique, you're not going to be putting on any muscle. The best thing that you could do is go out, buy yourself a logbook, or if you just want to use your phone, there's some fantastic apps that you can use. Start logging your weight and your reps and slowly improve those over weeks, months, and over the course of the year. Most guys that you'll see, you know, bench pressing 100 kilos or squatting 140 kilos, you know, they've built that over time. They haven't just picked up the barbell and started lifting weights. You know, they have done that for a period of time and they started, just using the bar, getting a feel for the movement, and then slowly, progressively overloading to enable them to build muscle. So ask yourself this question: are you progressively overloading, or are you still lifting the same weights that you were lifting maybe like 2 months ago? If you are still lifting the same weights in the first couple of months, then you've got to look at applying progressive overloads. So write your numbers down, understand what you can do, what's your top and your maximum, and slowly build from there, and I promise you guys, muscle will be built. Tip number 5, and a really important one that I feel a lot of people neglect, especially at the start, and to be fair, I see it quite often in the gym as well, and that is full range of motion and form. So of course, they both go hand in hand, but let me break both of them down. Full range of motion is basically taking the exercise through its range of motion and shorten and lengthen it correctly. So when you think of a bicep curl, we want to kind of fully lengthen the muscle and fully shorten the muscle in order to work that particular muscle group. If you're not necessarily doing that, then of course you're probably not going to be working the muscle efficiently. So that's what you'll commonly see when people squat. They do like kind of half reps where they're just keeping all the tension in their lower back rather than their quads and their glutes. The same applies to like a tricep push down. If they're not kind of fully lengthening and shorten the muscle group, then they're not going to be working the tricep, and instead they're going to just be putting too much pressure on their joints. When it comes to a bench press, if you're not controlling the weight all the way down and basically touching your chest or there or thereabouts, if you're kind of only going down halfway, then of course, you're not going to be working your chest. So of course, full range of motion does fall under form, but why it's slightly different is because, form also applies to things like tempo, not having your heels come off the ground when you're squatting and things like that. So let's just pinpoint tempo. Again, let's just keep with bicep curl, because it's the most common one I normally see. So if you're bicep curling the weight, really fast from the bottom to the top, maybe not fully extending as well, you're not necessarily isolating that muscle group correctly. You've got to think about time under tension, controlling the centric as you come down for sort of 2 or 3 seconds and driving up for 1. These are some of the things you've got to consider. And other things as well, one I've already touched on, heels coming off the ground. Also when it comes to momentum as well, if you're doing like a tricep push down or a shoulder press, are you using your knees to kind of bounce up? There are other key considerations you've got to think about. If you prioritize full range of motion and form over a period of time, I promise you will put on muscle. The best thing you can do is YouTube or go on other social media platforms and find someone that's really useful and demonstrates fantastic technique and learn from them, and then implement it into your own training on a weekly basis. Okay, cool. So I think that is balanced correctly. You should see the setup I have on a couple of boxes. But anyway, so last workout for myself for the week, and going in with another full body session. For those interested, my current split at the moment is a lower session on a Monday, upper on a Tuesday, Wednesday is an active rest day, Thursday is a full body, Friday is like a kind of conditioning day that I do for myself, and then Saturday is a full body, so making sure I hit every single muscle group at least 2 times a week. So the 5 really important tips, guys, that I want you to take away from this video and start applying from tomorrow. The very first one is you've got to eat in a calorie surplus. So if you're not eating in the calorie surplus, you're not going to be growing. If you're between the ages of 16 and 20 and you've got a very lean physique, you're probably not eating enough if you're wanting to train regularly and put on muscle. Make sure you're eating a significant amount of protein, get your carbohydrates and fats in there as well. Make sure you get your micronutrients. But the really, really important one, guys, is eating a calorie surplus. Training wise, you've got to have the correct training split, and don't get me wrong, there's not a one fits all approach. Just make sure you're hitting every single muscle group at least twice a week, starting with some of the compound movements and then moving on to sort of isolation and unilateral work. For additional volume, chucking some drop sets, rest pause, muscle rounds and things like that. Those 2 points aren't really going to help you if you're not consistent. You've got to stay consistent with the gym. You haven't got to be going, 7 days a week and eating ridiculously clean. You've just got to keep showing up, those 7 out of 10 performances. Just keep giving your all and you'll see the progress from there. Talking about progress, that's where you've got to be looking at progressively overloading. So progressive overload, as I said in an earlier video, is increasing the load, which is the weight, or your reps and sets over a period of time. Initially, of course, without progressively overloading, you will put on a little bit of muscle, but once you go past that initial kind of 6 months or so, if you're not progressively overloading, your physique isn't necessarily going to change. And that's what we want. We want to be progressively overloading, and we want that muscle tissue. The fifth and final one is full range of motion and form. You know, we don't want any half reppers over here. We've got to be putting stress on that particular muscle group. We've got to be taking it from A to B. You know, really break down your exercises. Look online. Are you performing them correctly? If you're not, you know, there's a good chance, you know, you're not going to be putting on any muscle anytime soon. So they are my 5 top tips when looking to put on muscle. And of course, you know, there are loads of others, but they are some of the main ones that I would start doing as of tomorrow. Of course, if you do have any additional questions when it comes to building muscle, either drop a comment below or drop me a message on Instagram. I appreciate all you guys for watching this video. I hope you got some value from this, and if you did like this video, drop it a like, subscribe to my channel. Videos coming every single week, and I'll see you guys in the next one.